The logical tale of Kafka's Metamorphosis leaves the reader in a sea of absurdness and perplexity. Though published much before the moment of surrealism, Kafka, being ahead of his time, has woven a surrealistic environment in the book. He had a hard time writing the book and could have never imagined how successful the book was going to be. In fact, this was not his main book, but he wrote it while working on another book. From being excessively sick to being abused by his father, Kafka had an artist's life, and these things are easily reflected in his work, especially in this book. So, to understand Kafkaesque, one has to understand the life of Kafka itself. The process by which an animal physically developed after birth or hatching, involving a conspicuous and relatively abrupt change in the animal's body structure through cell growth and differentiation. Something to note here, the term metamorphosis is not just about a change but a series of changes, and this can be seen in the story itself. The name of the book portrays one of the main themes of the book. While reading the book, one can notice that the change wasn't just for Samsa, but for his entire family, his mother, father, and sister. It tells us how different family members react to the situation. The family which respected Samsa before the metamorphosis started showing changes in major ways. The only member who showed concern toward him was his sister. She brings him food, cleans his room, places a chair by the room so that he can see the outside view, and comes out with the idea of removing the furniture so he has more room to scurry and climb. But as we continue reading, we can see the change in her persona, as she was the first one to advise that they should get rid of it. Samsa's father is one of the most important characters, as it can be seen that the father is the projection of Kafka's real father. Kafka's father was described as a huge, ill-tempered domestic tyrant, who on many occasions directed his anger towards his son and was disrespectful towards his escape into literature too. Kafka's father had an oppressive personality, and Kafka has mentioned in his writings too about his abusive nature. Gregor's father appeared to be an unkind, selfish man who was primarily concerned about money. There are two instances when he interacts with Gregor and he attacks Gregor in some way or the other. At one instance, he throws an apple at him which gets stuck in his flesh and starts to rot. The symbolism behind the apple incident could be of the growing disconnection between Gregor and his family. His father throws the apple at him, which shows how he did not just want to torture him but also wants to torture him without touching him. The apple can be assumed to have biblical significance, referring to Adam and Eve incident too. The death of Gregor in the end can be due to the subtle injuries formed by the apple, which shows how resentment and hatred can be lethal. Kafka has shown how the alienation of man can attack the identity of a person. Though the reason of transformation is unknown, it appears that it is symbolizing some sort of illness. The assessment of the family towards him can be that the illness might be a less socially accepted illness. These thoughts of Kafka's remain true even after 100 years of book being published. The resentment of human towards the present scenario of pandemic is quite visible and shows how human behavior can change with the course of time and circumstances. And this is the overarching allegory of book, that how modern society isolates human from one another. Gregor's struggle to remain human in such conditions too show how a human is a craver of human affection and how the mind strives to be human. His reaction to his metamorphosis was quite surreal, as he did not just bemoan his condition or try to find the cause of it. He just accepted it and tried hard to get from the bed and go to work. When the family, along with his boss, arrived at his door, he was ashamed to be near them. This shows how alienation can affect the minds of people. Gregor, being in the new form, discovered that despite all these new physical and physiological changes, he started hiding under the bed in the dark even though his body won't fit there comfortably. He started loving climbing on the walls too, but despite all these changes, he still had the thinking process of his previous self, which was more human than his body. Taking a closer look at the book, one can notice the several differences in the life of Gregor's sister and Gregor, his father and his mother. Kafka has shown how women are portrayed weaker than men, as it can be seen how the earning members of the family are men, and his sister is shown to be taking vital classes after her college. Later, after the death of Gregor, his sister finds a job and the family is happy again as spring arrives in the family. This also reveals the ending of the book is not incomplete, as what many of the critics have mentioned. The death of Gregor may be referred to death of building patriarchy in the family. This is the final stage of the present metamorphosis and the first stage of a new beginning.